rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. So I have to give an apology to 3 Chevy, as well as anybody else who might have been affected. So I've been working with Rumble on the problems that I was having last week with my remote streaming setup. And I decided today that I wanted to do a test stream utilizing that other device to see if maybe it was just a fluke, whatever. Anyway, when I did that, the connection into Rumble, I switched it from my American Perspective channel over to my American McGroin persona. And anyway, I ended up leaving it there so that when I started streaming tonight, 3 Chevy and I, because I hadn't noticed, but 3 Chevy and I ended up over on my American McGroin account in the very beginning. So I had to quickly shut that stream down to get it back over onto the American Perspective channel because everybody was waiting for the American Perspective channel. And it looks like I ended up getting My News also. My News was having a problem. Apparently the 3 Chevy, when I shut down the original stream over on American McGroin, it switched over to American Perspective. He got bumped to something different and thought that the channel was taken over. Anyway, the wonders and thrills of streaming. I'm still trying to understand and figure out. I mean, the machine that I'm using is a popular machine. It's a popular item. There's a bunch of people that use it to stream, so I'm a little shocked that Rumble it seems to be having these challenges, with that particular device, and they're obviously troubled by it too, because they can't quite figure out what the hell's going on. But when I stream with my regular studio computer, obviously everything runs just fine. So I'm honestly at a loss, especially because of the fact that YouTube, Facebook, and X, all three, can take in it can ingest the same signal, and it's only Rumble that has the blank out of the video whenever I go live. Now, they also suggested that I use a different methodology in the back end. I tried that methodology, and it wouldn't even work. They call it the low latency stream, and it wouldn't even work. But anyway. All right, I'm giving you way too much information on the technical side. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, we have JMBSL. That's JMBSL over on Rumble. She is up for tonight's pledge. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with JMBSL as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
And I thank you, JMBSL, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the Pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the Pledge in your style. Take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email, and then send that email off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. and I will get you into the rotation. I have 24 of these items. I need 2 more to hit my 26 for 2026. So, if you would, please, if you haven't already done so, please get some, please get them in. I need 2 more by the end of the year. It would be awesome to get them by the anniversary, by the 250th anniversary of the United States, but that's okay. I understand if you can't get to it until the end of the year. That's fine. Just as long as I get them by the end of the year, I'll be happy. Also, if you utilize your phone to record it, all you need to do is make sure you use the share option. That's the SHARE option to send it off to me and send it to fans, FANS at AmericanPerspective.online. And for tonight's sponsor, we have none other than theflagshirt.com. I'm wearing their Declaration of Independence shirt right here on the program, and the men's cotton polo. So go and check out all of their styles, men's, women's, made in the USA, kids, all of their accessories in the red, white, and blue. Get yourself decked out for this 250th anniversary. 250. Just 250. That's where we're at. 250 years. It'll never come again. 250th anniversary of the United States. Go ahead and do that, and take a look at their America 250 collection as well. But this is a 3-day weekend. The 3-day weekend, which most people think of the unofficial kickoff to summer. Yeah, it's Memorial Day, the day where we remember all those lives who were lost in the creation of this country historically over the years. Whether it was World War I, World War II, Civil War, Revolutionary War, all of the wars that we have combined, we memorialize our dead. And in order to help with that, theflagshirt.com has a $15 off when you order $75 using the code MEMDAY. That's MEMDAY. I'll spell it phonetically for you. That's Mike, Echo, Mike, Delta, Alpha, Yankee. There you go. MEMDAY. When you use that code in the promo code box at checkout, you'll get $15 off your $75 order by using the code MEMDAY, short for Memorial Day. MEMDAY. Get $15 off your $75 order at theflagshirt.com. Head on over to theflagshirt.com. Get yourself ready for the 250th anniversary of this great country and get $15 off your order, your $75 order, $75 plus order by using the code MEMDAY, MEMDAY. All right. Go on over to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. Well, we're going to start off with some sad news. And actually, it's even doubly sad. I mean, doubly sad, meaning that we're going to be losing a great, what I would consider to be a pretty good patriot. She actually kind of swapped parties. And anyway, Tulsi Gabbard has turned in her resignation. She is resigning as the Director of National Intelligence. I'm sure that she would much rather not resign under these kinds of circumstances, but apparently her husband was diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer, and she is going to leave the office of the DNI in order to go and take care of him. Now, her resignation will become effective June 30th, which means that we have her for about another month. And I know she's been working to declassify some other things that a lot of us might be interested in. For an example, there was an article last week where she was attempting to declassify the FISA warrant that came out, especially regarding Donald Trump, I would guess. But anyway, prayers go out to her and her husband. Hopefully her husband is able to fight and beat this rare form of bone cancer. But that announcement came out today. And of course, Donald Trump, said the same thing, said prayers for her husband, and that she had been a great leader and a great worker in the administration. I don't care who it is, honestly. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican, if you're a good guy, a bad guy. Nobody deserves to go through cancer. They really don't. And I'm sure that it took her a little bit of time to kind of figure it out. But honestly, especially on this show, look, I'm telling you folks, I appreciate every single one of you that show up here all the time. But to be, nothing is more important than family. You take care of family first. Family is always first. And you take care of them first. And that's what you need. And she is, in my opinion, she's making the right call by doing this. And again, like I said, my prayers, the show's prayers go out to her and her husband for this, and pray that he is able to fight and defeat the cancer. All right. Moving on to California really quickly. I don't know if anybody noticed, but the oil company Chevron, well, I'll explain the sign and the attack here in a minute, but Chevron decided to go on the offensive and explain to the people of California why their gas prices were so high. And Governor Gavin Newsom's press office, Governor Gavin Newsom's press office account on X, well, let's just say they decided to try and get on the bandwagon and create a little bit of a boycott against Chevron for this. They said, Californians, if you're hitting the road this holiday weekend, which a lot of people do, be sure to avoid Chevron. And he goes, yeah, this is not Gavin Newsom. This is just his press office. So some, millennial or not a millennial, and we pick on millennials all the time. Some leftist lunatic young person there has decided that they want to go and attack Chevron. And they put in, pro tip, unbranded gas comes from the same refineries, storage tanks, and pipelines, and it meets the same state standards to keep your engine running clean, even if it doesn't have a fancy name like Techron. And he goes, big oil is already making billions off Trump's Iran war. Don't let them rip you off even more by overpaying for the brand name. Well, I can tell you from my own experience that is true. The pro tip is true. However, what is also true is what Chevron put out on signs at their stations. Yeah. So let's they added some signs to their pumps here, and let's just take a minute and watch this.
All right, check it out. We're at Chevron. Sacramento Policies did this now you pay more. California politics are choosing foreign oils and fuel over local jobs and lower costs. This is at the Chevron, right here, okay? Right here. So Chevron is letting people know it's not Donald Trump making our gas more expensive. It's California politics are choosing foreign oils over fuel and fuels over local jobs and lower costs. Because we could be doing this here, but they'd rather buy it from foreigners and load their pockets instead of giving us jobs and making it cheaper for us. They're fucking crooks. Fuck the Democrats.
Yeah, sorry about that that little F-bomb, but hey, he's not wrong. Anyway, yeah. So the thing about it is that so many people don't seem to understand is while the average price of oil, yes, it has gone up. And you recall I did that almost the entire episode explaining gas prices. But here's the thing, is that the average gas price across the country, that's including all of the Democrat states that are high tax and all of the Republican states that are not high tax, blended together is only around $4-ish right now. And, yeah, California by itself is above that by at least $1, as you saw in that video there. They're at like $6.63, depending upon where you go. Because, of course, there's state and local taxes known as SALT. So the city or the state of California adds all kinds of taxes on top of it. Road taxes, clean air taxes, refinery taxes, taxes on taxes, taxes of the taxes on the taxes. I mean, they just like continually, because Democrats are stupid and they just want to tax you. They just want to tax you across the board. Now, I live in the state of Washington. Washington also does the exact same thing. We have, because they just basically follow whatever California does. Washington's like, hey, big guy, let me just follow you into the next whatever. And, yeah, they do taxes upon taxes upon taxes here. Now, we're not as high, technically, yet, as California. But the thing about it is that a lot of people don't seem to understand is they sit there and they look at that, and the first thing that they think of is it's Donald Trump's fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. In fact, there is a couple of different reasons as to why, and I've explained this before, but the biggest number one reason as to why oil prices are high and gas prices are high is because we haven't actually had a new refinery and capacity increase since like the 1970s for across the board, because of all of the environmental regulations and all of the Green New Deal and all that other crap that kept getting added on by the Democrats. We haven't had any newer technologies or new refineries built. In fact, there's only one right now that is being built right now. And then, of course, you have things like that whole Keystone XL pipeline, which would have done been a huge boon for us here in America, being able to take oil from the Great White North and bring it down here, to be able to get it refined and everything else. And yeah, that got killed by Biden, and now we're having to deal with instead of safely, securely, and quickly pumping it through a pipeline, we're having to deal with having to load it onto rail cars, oil tankers and such, and bring them in, which causes essentially an increase in cost of all of that. Now, California by itself, by the way, buys its oil from, as they pointed out, foreign companies. They don't buy it here from, say, the state of Texas, where Texas has light, sweet crude, the best of the best in oil. Remember, light and sweet means that it doesn't take much in the way of refining in order to get it into other petroleum products. It doesn't have a lot of sulfur in it, so that process of stripping out the sulfur doesn't have to take place. It is a light oil, so there isn't a lot of refining or, paring it down that has to occur either. So all of that adds up. And then, of course, you have just the generic global oil of, global barrels, price of a barrel of oil on the regular market. Well, California does not buy it from Texas. In fact, they don't buy their oil from any place here. They ship it in from foreign countries. And there you go. And so this is part of the reason why California is paying out the nose for their gas. And Chevron apparently is tired of it, and they've just decided, hey, we're gonna talk about the truth. We're gonna put it out there. I don't blame them. Let them. And unfortunately, Gavin Newsom is now basically taking on Chevron. So we'll see how that goes. Well, after the rout that was done here recently, there are some more Republican lawmakers that are now facing primary challenges. Obviously, we were talking about Massey and a couple others that have been taken out. Well, the fact that Trump, he's emboldened by these series of primary victories, and is signaling that there's even more GOP lawmakers that could face Trump-backed challenges ahead of 2028. So, the ones that he's floated recently was Lauren Boebert out of Colorado. Trump criticized her on Truth Social over this past weekend, while encouraging a primary challenger against her, because she stood with Thomas Massey, obviously. Then we have Rand Paul is also faced repeated criticism from Trump for backing Massey, and of course opposing the Trump's tax and spend legislation. Representative Warren Davidson of Ohio is another one that the White House has indicated could face a future challenge. So, yeah. And Davidson, by the way, supported Massey's reelection effort. And Trump this Wednesday also criticized Representative Brian Fitzpatrick out in Pennsylvania, accusing him of voting against the president all the time. So, yeah. Anyway, there's some more that are out there. And even though Donald Trump has sort of mentioned it, White House Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair sought to downplay the possibility of Trump targeting Fitzpatrick in particular, noting the president's long relationship with the Pennsylvania lawmaker. So anyway, Trump's allies, of course, point out that his political operations are now far stronger and better funded than during his first term. So obviously the anti-Massey super PAC effort is on the docket as a example. So there you go. Now, keep in mind, I personally think that this kind of stuff, I mean, I understand, Donald Trump wanting to advance his agenda. I get it. Okay. But the reality of it is that you should really vote not for the person. You should vote for the policies. You should vote for what the person does in terms of the policies, not necessarily falling in love with the politician itself or himself or herself. And so that's kind of where we need to go. And unfortunately, some of these politicians, while I agree they were rhinos, they need to have gotten out. But I also caution against total 100% allegiance following without a single ounce of questioning what's being done. That can tend to get dangerous. So that one I'm a little concerned about this idea that he just wants to get rid of everybody that opposes him. If you oppose him for a specific reason, one which makes sense and is more of the, shall we say, the common good of the country, I get it. You oppose him for a reason. I mean, I don't agree with Donald Trump on everything that he does. I'm not just a blind follower, but at the same time, though, we do need independent thinking within the within the body politic to be able to understand what's best for the American people. And that's what we're going for. Now, there's also a indication Trump needs to decide on whether or not to oppose Representative Nancy Mace in South Carolina's June gubernatorial primary because of the fact that Mace joined Massey and Boebert in particular in pushing for the release of the Epstein files, which, as I've pointed out, first of all, I can't see what purpose that has for Congress to even be getting involved with that. But even if Congress did have a purpose and a reason, we already have all of the answers that we need. So it's not like it was really doing anything. All of that hubbub and hullabaloo really in reality was just a bunch of nothing. The big old nothing burger. All right. Let's move on to our headline topic. Ladies and gentlemen, whenever you have any kind of an incident, whenever you have any kind of an operation, whenever you have any kind of plan that you put in place, that you attempt to do something, whether you succeed or fail, you should always go back and do what is called, what we in the military used to call, an after action report. And essentially what that is it's an evaluation. It's an evaluation of your performance. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What was successful? What was unsuccessful? What could you have done to make it successful? These are all questions that you would go through, and you would do an analysis of the activities of whatever this operation is, and you would identify your weaknesses, your strengths, so on and so forth, and you would figure out, maybe next time how to do something better. Well, the Democrats have been hanging on to this autopsy report, this post-mortem report that is supposed to have gone through the 2024 election. And usually when you do these things, what you do is you try to identify things before the next operation comes up. In politics, obviously, that's the next election. Well, the Democrat National Committee has been dragging their feet in releasing this thing. Well, they finally released it. And not that I'm necessarily looking through it for anything, because frankly, I like it when the Democrats lose. just going to put it out there because that's the way I am. The Democrats are the anti-American party. They have definitely shifted farther left and so on and so forth throughout the last several years. I mean, let's face it, the quality of their candidates has been questionable at best. And even those that have, come into, started off campaigning and saying that they are, that they are moderates, they come to find out they're wolves in sheep's clothing because they all of a sudden turn into a flaming leftist and anything but moderate. Abigail Spanberger, or Spamberger, however you want to call her, is one of them. But this DNC post-mortem report, well, let's just say it was fairly disappointing. And Greg Gutfeld, well, he decided to discuss what he saw in this report. And, well, you know how Greg is. Greg does truth bombs. So, for tonight's truth bomb, keep pressing the wrong button. Anyway, so for tonight's truth bomb, we go to Greg Gutfeld. Take a listen to this.
People keep asking, why did it take so long to release the autopsy? Well, they were waiting for Kamala's toxicology report to come back. But autopsies are like an intervention. Your friends and family show up to tell you all the bad stuff that you've done. But here, they did skirt a lot of the issues. Why was that? The ones that mattered were the cultural issues. They weren't brought up here, and they weren't mentioned, especially trans, because they haven't changed their positions on them. So if you're not going to fix the problem, you sure as hell aren't going to own up to it. You're going to talk about Trump instead. But the problem is, if the underlying positions are still there, we're still going to focus on it because it's a huge issue. I went back, Dana, to find out the first time I mentioned a trans-related story, 2011, 2012, about bathrooms. Now, I targeted this for a very important reason, because I saw the intimidation tactics that would occur when it happened. And I figured that if I persuaded people on the importance of fighting this battle, it would matter. It wasn't a marginal issue. You could say, I remember the argument, it's only a few trans people. That wasn't the point. It was an attempt to re-engineer biology and silence anyone who dare questioned it. Why was the trans issue so important to challenge? Because people still ask me this, usually when I'm out in the street signing autographs. I'll tell you why. It diagnosed and it exploited the fatal flaw of cultural relativism. That's the unlocked door where any idea that is detached from truth could enter. It just so happened that it was trans, but it didn't have to be. Trans women are women. That got in. But it could have been anything else. 60-year-olds are now 40. A morbidly obese person is now fit. Horses are people. Cantaloupes could have rights. It's all the same. Any position where truth is surrendered to the prevailing wishes of the mob would become the order of the day and would compel you to obey. That's why it mattered. It was like the first strike against a 13 billion-year-old planet. And it was a flex. It was a flex of the unravelers, the people who said, if we could do this, there's no such thing as truth anywhere.
So Greg kind of has a point. And in looking through the autopsy and the large amount, there was 192 pages on this. And let's just put it this way. They didn't even hit on anything that was really the problem. They didn't hit the DNC in their postmortem. Like Greg points out, didn't even identify the fact that, hey, you know what? We kind of screwed up with this whole, trans ideology thing and letting women into, men's sports and, the whole body positivity thing, when you know that body positivity is just meaning that you're looking at unhealthy stuff, they also left out a huge piece of the puzzle and the pie, which is essentially that the DNC's autopsy never even bothered to even examine whether or not they actually put forth proper candidates. I mean, think about this. They put forth Joe Biden. And realistically, the reason why Joe Biden won is because the vast majority of Americans who voted for him were looking at it and going, oh my gosh, Trump 1 was worse off than Trump 2. Because to be honest with you, here we're like what, a year and a half into Trump 2, and he's already done so much more than he ever got accomplished in Trump 1. And at Trump 1, he was continually mired in all of these, as we now know, debunked and made up stories, which when we were going through them, most of us who had the intelligence to see through the fog said, well, yeah, but this is all made up. The majority of Americans were still on the side of believing all of this. So then, of course, you have from 2020 all the way over into 2025 now, which this is a poll that was taken back in 2025. You have this conversation with people on the left, in particular in the Democrats, where the Democrats thought, hey, you know what? 2021, we should, maybe think about potentially being more liberal or more moderate, or, well, let's just stay the same. So this was a Gallup poll that was posted in February of 2025. Hold on, I got to get it here. Here's the Gallup poll. Here's the results. And you can see on the top side of the chart here, back in 2021, it was an almost even split for Democrats and Democratic-leaning independent voters. It was an almost even split, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. To go either more liberal with 34%, stay the same at 31%, or become more moderate at 34%. Well, somehow between 2020 and 2025, the leftists took over completely. And now you have the same type of people, the Democrats and the Democrat-leaning independents, who are basically saying with almost a plurality, hey, we need to be more moderate. That was missing from the DNC report, the DNC autopsy. And the reason why it was missing from the DNC autopsy is because of the fact that, as Greg Gutfeld mentioned, they actually still believe in those policies. They actually still believe that they are on the right track with their thought processes of all of these things. That they need to stay to the left. Yeah. Well, one of the things that came out of this report was the fact that Kamala Harris didn't do any podcasts. Yeah, that's the reason why she lost. She didn't get on enough podcasts. Democrats and the DNC, I'm just going to tell you right now, when you float bad candidates, you get bad results. I mean, oh my gosh, you had, what did you have? Tampon Tim in frickin' Minnesota, who was supposed to be like, oh yes, I can bring in the white male vote. And he's sitting there trying to show that because he changes an air filter on his old truck, that he's a macho man. Yeah. That's going to bring in a lot of voters. Sure. Yeah. You have Kamala Harris, who can't even, they had to modify a 60 Minutes report on her. They had to do like multiple takes because her answers were so incoherent. That nobody even understood what she was saying. Yeah. Well, that was a problem. Oh, and of course they sit and talk about money. They're like, oh, well, we didn't have enough money. Yeah, you did. You spent on Kamala Harris's campaign, millions of dollars on her campaign, backing her as the candidate. There's another glaring omission in this report. And believe me, this is like really glaring, even more so than putting Kamala on more podcasts. It was literally the lack of mention of Joe Biden, his age, the ongoing effort that we know, the American public knew, that the mainstream media was trying to hide from all of us. The mainstream media itself was like, oh, yes, we got to hide this. We got to hide this idea. No, it was because of Joe Biden. And not to mention the fact, too, don't forget the Democrat National Committee went ahead and just said, you know what? We're not even going to have a primary. Joe Biden drops out of the race. We're not going to have a primary to figure out who's next. We're just going to install Kamala Harris, who literally had zero exposure, zero positive exposure at any time throughout her VP time slot. The whole thing where she was the border czar, yeah, that failed miserably. And by the way, that was the mainstream media that dubbed her that, not any right-wing folks. But you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, okay, where, be honest with yourselves. When you're doing this kind of thing, you need to be honest with yourself. And in all honesty, the DNC really screwed up by, one, installing Joe Biden as their candidate. Because they played on his idea of the Scranton kid. And they kept him in the basement during the first, COVID. During COVID and stuff. So, yeah. There's not one single mention of his advanced age or the strategic decision to shield him from the public, who all thought that he was too old. There's also the point that they point out, which this is absolutely a brutal chart for the left. At least they admitted this. This is a chart from the report. In 2009 to 2025, they showed how many senators, congressmen, governors, state legislatures, and state trifectas were picked up between 2009 and 2025. And as you can see in the change column, there was a significant push to the Republican side. So at least they admitted, we have a problem here. But your problem is not necessarily your messaging. That was called out in the report too. Oh, we had bad messaging. No, The problem was not your messaging. The problem was not Kamala Harris not going on to podcasts. The problem literally was you floated bad candidates. Your candidate pool sucks. It is horrible. It is horrible. Well, the DNC chair, Ken Martin, he's gone out and publicly stated part of the reason why he didn't release the autopsy report is that because of the fact that it, quote, did not meet my standards. Yeah. He goes, I am not proud of this product. It does not meet my standards, and it won't meet your standards. He added that he could not, in good faith, put the DNC's stamp of approval on the autopsy report. He emphasized that he would release the report for the sake of transparency. As he received it, he says, in its entirety, unedited, unabridged, with annotations for claims that couldn't be verified. But of course, he doesn't explain that, hey, guys, we just screwed up. We went way too far left. We had crap candidates, and we need to get better at this. Not to mention the fact that we need to stop with all of the anti-American messaging and go back toward the middle, where we should be. Yeah. He didn't bother with any of that. Well, he's facing backlash, even from ex-DNC Vice Chair David Hogg. That's right, the Hogster is back in the news because he's demanding Ken Martin resign after this autopsy release. Yeah, his total of 30 seconds, a cup of coffee as the former DNC vice chairman. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really going to go over well. So, Hogg, according to The Hill, said, it's clear that Chair Ken Martin has lost the confidence of his staff, supporters, and most importantly, millions of Americans counting on the DNC to help Democrats win up and down the ballot in 2026 and 2028. He said Ken Martin should resign and the DNC should select a new leader who demonstrates competence, creativity, moral clarity, and a relentless commitment to actually changing the broken Democratic Party brand. Yeah, Democrat Party brand. The brand that is against just about everything that America stands for. Sure. Yeah. Anyway, there's no sign, by the way, that Martin is actually going to leave. He has kind of ignored it. Representative Seth Moulton joined Hogg in calling for Martin's resignation. And other Democrats are sharply criticizing his handling of the autopsy report. So the calls for him to resign, I'm sure, are going to grow. But Ken Martin has not indicated in any way that he is even thinking about leaving at this point. So Representative Seth Moulton told Axios that Martin should resign, citing what he called a lack of leadership and an inexcusable delay in publishing the report. Yeah. Representative Mark Pocan from Wisconsin said on the May 21st episode of the Tom Hartman program that having what we have right now at the DNC is not doing it. Pocan was responding to a caller who proposed recalling Martin and replacing him with none other than Jasmine Crockett out of Texas. Yeah. Okay. Sure. The Democrat Party is lost. They have been roaming around in the woods because they can't quite figure out that it's their bad candidates, their bad policies that are anti-American. Now, I'm not trying to advocate that the Democrat Party all of a sudden change here and like get on the bandwagon. No, I'm very happy that this is happening. Because what this is doing is, instead of having the sneaky ass Democrat Party from, 20, 30, 40 years ago who would sneak up and stab you in the back immediately the minute that they wanted to spend your money even more, even going as far back as during the Reagan era with Tip O'Neill, some of the things that they did. Well, I'm just telling you. And honestly, even the Republicans kind of have, in some cases, have this same kind of problem. Because what you're seeing a fundamental shift, honestly, in the American psyche right now. See, Americans are starting to shift back toward, hey, we need to actually get back on track now. And I'm hoping and praying that it stays this way. But it seems that the American people are starting to shift back to being America first, America positive, America forward. And while our momentum is with us right now because of the election of Donald Trump and some of the things that we've been able to do so far in Trump 2.0, that shift has got to get bigger and better. And we still need to get there. And when we're facing Democrat candidates like this idiot, you've got to have a sharp mind and sharp skill to dismantle these idiots. Because realistically, the American psyche, the American public, have been, well, they've been brainwashed for way too long for this leftist crap. Well, you heard of Tallarico. James Tallarico down in Texas. Well, there's a new ad that's out. And keep in mind, I mean, people like what you're seeing happening in California as well is an indication that the American people on a general note seem to be wanting to tack back toward the middle, back toward American values, back toward American principles. But when you have people like this guy, and Karen Bass in the mayoral race, that one's the one to watch. The governor's race down in California right now, where you could possibly end up with two Republican candidates for governor down there. Anyway, take a look at this ad for Tallarico.
The Democrats have a weird candidate.
God is non-binary. There are many more than two biological sexes. In fact, there are 6. It is now existential that we try to reduce our meat consumption. The American flag is such a complicated symbol for most of us. Prophetic voices like Jesus have helped me reckon with my own whiteness, my own masculinity. Our southern border should be like our front porch. There should be a giant welcome mat out front. No need to sit and cry over, your whiteness or your masculinity. They're gonna call me a radical leftist.
Something that you love, that's not family or friends.
I love, I'm just saying this because it's on my mind, the trans children.
The Democrats have a weird candidate.
Low T Tallarico, too weak for Texas. Lone Star Liberty PAC is responsible for the content of this ad.
Yeah. So there you go. See, look, and again, just to be completely clear on all of this, God is binary. God the Father, God the Son. The only one that could be counted as non-binary would be the Holy Spirit, providing the Trinity. The Bible tells us that God is a man. Period. or would be the male equivalent of whatever it is that he is. There's stuff in the Bible that even talks about, you know, the whole situation with sin and everything else. This is one of my biggest challenges when it comes to going to church. But to sit here and to say that, you know, what is his favorite thing? Oh, his favorite thing is trans children. Wait, what? His favorite thing is trans children. Okay. And he talks about his whiteness. Skin color means nothing anymore, folks. It really doesn't. Here in America in 2026, it means nothing. It only means something to a leftist Democrat. That's it. And this is the point that I'm making, is that these people, these individuals that they are bringing on, okay, that they're bringing on here, this is crazy. This is why you guys lost in 2024. You went way too far to the left. Even people in your own party, in a almost plurality here, 45% are saying that you need to become more moderate. And you sit there and question yourself, well, question why? Well, we didn't put our candidate on enough podcasts. No, that's not the reason. Because you're literally being stupid. You're being complete, utter stupid morons, and you're tacking way too far away from what the American people, the plurality of American people, Democrat, Republican, Independent, all common sense Americans want. And you've decided to walk away from that. And that's your problem. But hey, I applaud you. Go ahead and keep doing it, because it's just going to make defeating you all that much more easy down the road, provided that the Republicans can pull their heads out of their asses and actually do it. All right. I'm going to say that is it for me this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or in the case of 3 Chevy, thumbs sideways or potentially at an angle, across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 1 hour later, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.